Hi, this is Richie from the Serviced Accommodation Podcast. In today's episode, we'll be looking back on our previous episodes on how to successfully scale your service accommodation business. So there will be some advice on growing your SA business successfully. Enjoy.
So if you were talking to someone who'd maybe been through that process, they've been operating 2 or 3 properties for 6 to 12 months, and now they're looking to really push forward and scale their business in the same way that you have, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Set up your KPIs, early doors, like really early doors. Get your measurables in place and how you're going to measure your growth. I think that's really crucial. I would say get your up your game, kind of like mindset, psychology wise. Really, when you go to any level, it's very testing of the mind. Do you know what I mean? And I think you've got to be prepared for that. And I think that's a big thing. And then make sure you've got the right kind of structure in place, strategy and support in place. For that next phase. People that you can turn to, work with, help with. And have the right systems and processes and people in place, Yeah, that's what I would say.
What advice would you give to someone who's scaling up their business?
Yeah, I guess really it's... I don't want to keep saying systemising.
You can keep saying systemising, that's absolutely fine.
How do you systemise, I guess, is the question. So it's teach someone, even if you've got no one to teach, maybe do a screen recording on your laptop and read out the instructions of what you're doing. Because actually you'll find there's little bits in your head that you're just doing them without much thought, and maybe you've got 3 ways of doing the same thing, and it depends which day of the week and what mood you're in as to the way you do it. So actually, what criteria would you do this or do that? And when you really break it down, and I would say do 10-minute videos, aim to do lots of 10-minute videos, and then you can even get a VA off People Per Hour or such like, and get them to write a set of instructions from that video. And that's the start of the systemising. That's getting it out of your own head and putting it into a process. Do this, if that, and so on and so forth. And that's absolutely essential, because if you're going to add staff as you start scaling, they need to know what to do. And so, you can then start identifying the higher value stuff and the lower value stuff. Now Emma's being instructed to leave most of the comms and focus on the higher value stuff. So when we've got guests requesting a late checkout, it's a science. You go to the cleaners, you check their schedule, you check the next check-in, you speak to the guests, and that's a science. Whereas rates management, maybe that's a bit more of an art, and that's that's higher value.
Part science, isn't it?
Yeah,
I always say.
And so that's a high value task. So we want to be able to focus on that without keep getting distracted about having an extra hour in the apartment. So
What advice would you give to someone who's kind of scaling up their service accommodation business?
I think really just what I said before. Know your area, build your relationships with your agents so that you have them on board. Like you said, I've always got the bookings before I've got the properties, really. So I know, I'm getting the keys to a house tomorrow, and I know that's booked now till the end of August because I've got people coming in, and that's on top of my other bookings. So it's about knowing your market, knowing your area, building relationships so you can scale up. Building relationships both with the agent and your local companies. Go out there and see who's in your area, and check out any local networking events that aren't property, just business events in the area, so you can meet business owners.
What advice would you give to anyone who's kind of scaling up their business at the moment, looking to take on more units and looking not to obviously get too overwhelmed with that, which we all know is very easy when you start to kind of grow your business, take on extra units?
I suppose, taking on as many as we did with all the refurbishments wouldn't, like I said earlier, be for everybody. And I wouldn't advise that, even for us again, if we did it in the same way again. I would definitely go for much more of the test it model. So get one of those buildings and test it. All right, the flip side of that, looking in hindsight, we wouldn't have got all those buildings. The market changed, and we wouldn't have been able to pick them up. We were a catalyst that a lot of other people came to the area, saw what we were doing. So if we'd have waited for 2 years, we wouldn't have got the same buildings for the same prices, and the price wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
But that was just our journey, and everyone's got their own journey. I would definitely, like I say, get them to test it first. But also the real key to it is get your systems in place first. When Ellie first started working with us, our agent up north they'd got Kigo. But they hadn't even implemented it properly. So in essence, 82. Well, it wasn't 82 at the time because we had one pub coming. It was about 50 odd rooms were all being run manually by them in the office,
with no software,
with no channel manager or anything like that. and hence why we weren't looking after people properly, because we were causing a lot of problems. There was a lot of firefighting going on, and they were stressed out. We were stressed out. So and then in essence, you're transferring that to the customer, who also gets stressed out, and they get fed up with that after a while and go somewhere else. Now we run things in a whole lot to a whole new level and a whole lot better. But get your systems right. Get a smaller building, maybe. Get all of your channel manager in. Get all of your systems in. Channel manager is only one of them. You guys are showing us stuff we never even knew existed. So get all that set up, and then add properties to it and scale up that way. We kind of did it the other way, and sometimes we talk about in our training sometimes about ready, fire, aim. And if you try and get all your ducks in a row, you never do anything. So I do agree with, throw yourself out there. You don't always have to have the perfect website. You don't always have to have the perfect everything. But it's good to have a foundation of those things. You can always build on them. But yeah, just get something up in place what you can work on, and then add to it from then, really.
Final question then. So what advice would you give to someone who's either looking at scaling up their business or is scaling up their business at the moment?
Look at the different models. Know your model as well. Test the market first. I would build, test, scale. Get to know your model. Get to know the area that you're wanting to operate in, and start small, and test the market. And when you're comfortable, then look at different ways in which you want to scale. What you're comfortable with. What's going to work for you? Might not work for somebody else, but what's going to work for you? What are you comfortable with? I would also say that make sure that you've got your teams in place. Make sure you've got good relationships. Make sure you're talking to your guests. And equally any corporate clients that you may deal with. Speak to them on a regular basis, but also listen to them. Listen to them and, have a good relationship with your cleaners, suppliers, that sort of thing.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to hear the latest on serviced accommodation.